All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. Now we're going to talk about Khamzat Chimaev because people are getting this thing wrong. I hear everyone talking about this topic right now and everybody's getting it wrong. I'm talking all my favorite YouTube channels, all my favorite analysts are all talking about this. None of them are saying the right thing. And what I'm talking about is Khamzat Chimaev's ranking, why it matters as it relates to other fighters fighting him and the advice that they're giving to the broader MMA community because they're giving them incorrect advice. I am going to correct the record right now. And I would challenge anyone who thinks they're in a position of authority to say that I'm wrong. And I will have that conversation with you. But anyway, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. Tell your friends. That's how I measure whether I'm doing good work. So if you think I make a good point on this video, that's actually the deal we're going to make. If I make a good, coherent argument, just please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. If you think I made a bad argument, then tell me in the comments about it. So anyway, here's the deal. So I just watched, I believe it was the Weasle. I watched a bunch of videos on this morning. So I watched like the Weasels. I watched Michael Bisping talk about it. I watched Chael talk about it. And I should probably go watch McCarthy and Josh Thompson. For some reason, YouTube doesn't suggest their channel to me, so I don't really watch it. But like anytime that I see it, I watch it. Like they have an excellent channel. I just, for whatever reason, you know, I don't know why YouTube doesn't suggest it. Anyway, whatever. But so I've watched everybody talking about it, and they're all saying the same thing. So my point is, if they've said what I'm going to say, I haven't seen their videos, but everybody else is saying the same thing, which is that Khamzat Chimaev presents a huge risk to people who want to fight him because they are in the, you know, the upper echelons of the division and he's not, right? And so basically they're, you know, the point that they're making is you're talking about a risk reward, right? Now, Kevin Lee just came out, right, after getting cut, and he specifically said, you taking the hard fights that the UFC wants you to take is not a good strategy for your career. You should be cherry picking. And that's true. That's 100% true. And Kevin Lee is right. I'm not going to break his balls over that. I actually think that he's making a very good point. And I actually think he is a person who took nothing but hard fights, you know, which kind of speaks to the thing I talked about in the video about him previously, which is the, you know, the cycle that you get in as a big star like that. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. But the point is, everyone needs to be selecting fights with strategy in mind, right? And so if Khamzat Chimaev is down at number 11 or whatever, 10, whatever number he is, and you're number 3, they're like, that's not good strategy. Like only a person like Neil Magny should fight him because he's down there, you know, he's like 9, Khamzat's 11. If you lose to him, there's nothing lost, nothing gained, etc. Basically, all of them said the same thing, right? Some of them were alluding to the fact that they think guys are scared to fight Khamzat Chimaev, and they're using the fact that he's ranked low as an excuse not to fight him. And Dana was saying they should see it as an opportunity for, you know, a lot of attention, promotion, etc., which is 100% true, and I will touch on that also. So, again, the main point they're all making is that it's not a good decision to go fight Khamzat or to go fight number 11 when you're number 3, ever. That's their position. Chael, Bisping, I think Bisping said that. Definitely the Weasle, definitely Chael. They all said that, right? And I'm saying, no, that's just not correct. Like that is not correct, because that right there is a perfect example of what I'm always talking about on my channel relating to how the UFC actually works, okay? So you have this hierarchy of how you choose who's going to fight for the title, right? And there's this thing, and there has to be sanctity to it, where if Leon Edwards wins 9 straight fights, okay, even though he's not marketable, and you've jumped him in line 8 different times, at a certain point, if he keeps winning, you have to give him that fight, because there has to be a belief from the public that the sanctity of the belt is intact, right? Like the belt needs to mean something. And if you just start going and you're like, all right, Nate Diaz is going to fight for the title next, and he's like lost 2 of his last 3 fights, you're like, what? This guy beat 2 out of the top 4 guys, and he's won 9 in a row. How are you going to do Nate that? And if you do that way, it delegitimizes the belt, right? It makes the belt not matter, okay? And that, above all else, even above Conor McGregor, like where Conor McGregor breaks every rule, where you want tier 1 fighters fighting tier 2 fighters to elevate tier 1 fighters. You only have tier 1 fighters fight against each other when there's something on the line. It's either a big fight or it's a title eliminator, and you're setting up a bigger fight. Everything is in pursuit of setting up big fights. Okay, that is the way it actually works. It appears like you're in this kind of like pyramid, you know, like playoff system like any other sport. That's how it looks. In reality, it is about setting up huge fights. Okay, you've got the illusion And then you've got what's real. And what's real is about setting up big fights, and you use this to kind of legitimize the view or the vision that the belt matters, right? And so in the mirage version of how this works, right? In the mirage of the pyramid, of course, why on earth would the number 3 guy fight the number 11 guy? That makes no sense. It's of course not. There's nothing. I mean, unless it's like, man, this guy's won so many. If he just wins one more, we'll give him a title shot. But that would never happen. When would a guy earn a title shot by beating number 10? It would never happen normally, right? But this is the thing, okay? So the biggest rule that supersedes all others is that hype trumps everything, okay? Hype can trump everything. And so if you think that Gilbert Burns taking on Khamzat Chimaev and then beating Khamzat Chimaev does not put him in line for the next title shot, you're crazy. You're wrong. Like that's not correct. That is not correct, because how do they really pick who gets title shots? Okay, they pick title shots based on who has the most hype. That's how you get a title shot. Period. Okay? Period. Now, again, the only thing that trumps that is that there has to be sanctity to the pyramid of how you get to the title shot. Okay, now I don't want to step on my other video, but I'm going to talk about Conor McGregor saying he's going to get a title shot. This is the other video I'm going to do today, which is unfortunately going to sound like there's going to be some things that sound similar here. Okay, but they're saying like, Conor's going to step right into a title shot. I will tell you whether or not he can do that, because hype trumps all, but never if you have to sacrifice the public's impression that the belt means something. Okay, that has to matter, because ultimately that is your golden ticket for any fight. Okay, you can have individual fighters that are like amplifiers, right? Like the individual fighter that's a big deal. That's an amplifier and a big one. And there were certain guys who are superstars. They can amplify anything. You could put them in there with like one of the ring girls, and it's like, oh man, this thing's going to do 1 million pay-per-views. It just doesn't matter. But those guys are extraordinarily rare, and you're not going to sacrifice. But your business. Your fucking business. The reason why UFC is different than boxing, okay? Like, you want to think about the boxing model versus UFC. Boxing is you just have like Conor fight Masvidal, and it's like, all right, what's next? They're all, I don't know, in 2 months, let's have Masvidal do Colby. It's all, well, what's after that? They're all, I don't know, let's have John Jones and DC. It's like, all right, what after that? They're like, let's have Garbrandt do TJ Dillashaw 3. What's after that? Like, you have this tiny little group of fighters that you can build events around. No one cares about who's on the undercard, and you do them very, very sporadically. That's boxing. Okay, the UFC is not boxing. Okay, the reason why UFC is a business where boxing are sporadic one-off events is because of exactly what I'm talking about. The actual impression that the hierarchy matters. The impression of the hierarchy is what separates UFC from boxing and allows it to be a business versus these one-off, oh, we're doing a haunted house for Halloween type businesses. One-off businesses every single time that they do a fight. And so you'll never sacrifice that. But the hype matters. Khamzat Chimaev, the impression of the fans is all that matters. Okay? It's all that matters is the impression of the fans. And so you can say, oh, well, this guy's ranked blobbity bloop. Like, look at this guy. He's a number 2 ranked guy. And you're like, who is that? It's like, it's fucking blah, blah, blah. Are you kidding me? He's number 2. He's won 7 in a row. And you're like, who was the last guy he fought? And they're like, blobbity blop. And you're like, damn, well, how'd he win? They're all decision. What about before that? They're all decision. What about before that? They're all decision. What about before that? He choked a guy. Okay, all right, cool. He's the number 2 guy. Like, cool. It's a number by his name. It's irrelevant as it relates to the impression of the fans. Khamzat Chimaev, if you guys do not understand this, is the number 1 contender as it relates to the impressions of the global fans. That is not arguable, okay? That is not arguable. If you did a poll, which I will do, I love that I can do polls now. I just realized I could do polls like 2 days, in case you guys haven't noticed, and I started like doing polls every fucking day. I did 2 yesterday. I will poll this, and I will guarantee you that the answer will be Khamzat Chimaev when I do a poll. It says, which of these welterweight contenders is most likely to beat Kamaru Usman? I'll bet my life on it. I will bet my fucking life on it. Okay, and also, if that's not the answer, then whoever's answering is an idiot. Okay, Khamzat Chimaev is the biggest threat to Kamaru Usman. Maybe Leon Edwards. He's the only one that has any chance of voting better than Khamzat. So the fans' impression is that Khamzat's the number 1 contender, and that's all that matters. The ranking system is fucking irrelevant as it relates to what's going to dictate who gets done. So you go in there and you fight Khamzat and you beat him, You just beat the number one contender. You are right there for the next title shot. That is just objectively true. I don't care what anybody says. If you think that I'm wrong, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And any of the experts, any of the analysts who actually know what's up and hear this, they're going to go, fuck, he's right. He's right. I can guarantee you fucking have Chael watch this fucking video and then ask him if I'm right. There's fucking 100% I'm right. 100%. Any of these guys will tell you that after they think, they'll go, okay, let me think about this. So if Gilbert Burns did take the Khamzat fight and then Gilbert Burns choked him in the first round, is he in line for a title shot? He would get another shot at Kamaru, even though Kamaru finished him. Like that. I'm sorry. Like these are just truths that are just, this is how I predict what's going to happen all the time because I understand what's actually driving all this stuff. Okay. And here's the other thing. So that answers actually, that doesn't answer whether they should fight him or not. That answers that just puts into perspective the decision that they have to make, right? That does not necessarily dictate whether or not they should fight him because you also got to consider this. What happens if you lose to Khamzat Chimaev, right? Like, so let's say you're Gilbert Burns and you go in there, you're like, yeah, I'm going to fight him. And Gilbert Burns is actually not even really that good of an example because Gilbert Burns actually does have a really good shot of beating Khamzat because he's so vicious on the ground, which is why the UFC's not making that fight. But think about Wonder Boy, right? Like Wonder Boy, he lost to Gilbert, but if he would have won that fight, he was right there in line for the next title shot after Leon. So he goes and he fights Khamzat. He's like, yeah, like if he beats Khamzat, he's not getting an immediate title shot, but he'll be one fight from a title shot, right? But what happens if he loses, right? He's coming off a loss to Gilbert Burns. What happens if he fights Khamzat and Khamzat fucking smashes him? Khamzat just smashes his face in. Then what? Okay, that's pretty bad for your career. That's terrible for your career. Okay, now I believe Khamzat is probably at least in the ballpark of the word likely to win the belt at some point, right? And, getting smashed, regardless of how you get smashed, you got smashed. And Khamzat is likely to smash you if he beats you. But if he wins the title, it's not quite as bad. But nonetheless, the impression that they'll have right after the fight is that you lost to number 10 or 11 or whatever. So the risk reward is enormous, enormous. And are you likely to beat him? Are you likely to beat him? That's what you really need to consider if you're one of these top guys. Like, if you think you can beat him, you should do it. If you're Colby and you really believe you can beat Khamzat Chimaev, and I'm not saying that you can't, but you should fucking take that fight because you'll get another shot at Kamaru. If Colby goes, if that's what Colby does, like if him and Masvidal are not going to do the fight, which it seems like they really might not be doing, because if they were, you would think that you'd have heard something by now, right? And hypothetically, if let's say this thing was a brilliant multi-year work, you gotta consider they don't want to fight each other. They don't actually want to fight each other. They would only if it was me and my best friend and we were doing this thing, I would if we were gonna do the Ultimate Fighter and then fight for an enormous amount of money, then sure. But anything other than that, or we're fighting for the title, I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't want to. Why would he want you understand what you take from a person when you beat them? You understand what you take from a guy when you beat them in the octagon. Okay, you take fucking everything from him at that moment. It is a long road back when you lose, dude. Losing even once is catastrophic, with a handful of exceptions. If you lose like Michael Chandler did to Justin Gaethje, that's not a net negative, obviously. But those are extraordinarily rare, where you lose and you also win. And so there's a probability, or I don't even know, there's a probability, who knows if it's low or high, that they actually don't want to fight each other, right? And so if that's the case, and Colby is looking at, well, what should I do then? If he fights Khamzat and he wins, he'll get another title shot after one fight. I bet you he fights, if he beats Khamzat, and then he'll fight Kamaru again. They're about to give Holloway a third fight with Volkanovski. So it just depends on the guy, A lot to lose though. Lot to gain, lot to lose. And Colby could probably get another title shot without having to fight the most dangerous motherfucker that we've seen in half a century. Wait, what? Maybe that figure was a little off. But the last thing I'll say on this is the Weasle did a video today that I watched where it was the toughest fight that Khamzat Chimaev has had. And he did the thing where he uses still frames. And he's you could see that, Khamzat, he's not moving his head off the center line and, whatever. He's it sounded like it was a fight that was hard, and the reason being the guy that he fought, who's 11-1 now, he's only lost to Khamzat, is a world Sambo champion, like a really high level, like Olympic champion, like the fucking real deal. And so he was able to, keep it standing. And so I was like, man, this sounds like this is a really tough fight. I will acknowledge I stopped it about 60% of the way through, and I was like, damn, this sounds like Khamzat really had to work for it. I went and watched the fight. Dude, if this is his toughest fight, I mean, I guess objectively it is tougher than the ones I've seen in the UFC, but here's what happened, okay? The fight's 2.5 minutes long. They end up in the center of the octagon. Khamzat knocks him down, like stuns him with a jab, like knocks, like shocked him to where he literally a legit knockdown with a jab. Then he tried to take the guy down. The guy defended well. Then when they got engaged again, Khamzat knocked him completely out, stone unconscious with an uppercut. So I was like, wow, this is the most challenging fight. I mean, no one has even given him an inch of real resistance. And people are like, oh, so we don't know what he has then. Is that really how you read that? This guy is 11-1. He's Khamzat's the only one that he hasn't beat. And that's how he walked through him. That's the guy giving the most resistance. And he's walked through everyone in the UFC. I don't understand how anyone is thinking that this guy is like hype train. There's nothing you've seen. He is all stone real. If you're not fucking scared, if I'm a UFC fighter, okay, I'm obviously not a UFC fighter, okay, but I'm pretty good at measuring violence and people's psychology. Very good at that part. Okay, so if I am in their position and I'm watching Khamzat fight, I can say whatever I want. Oh, we're going to derail this guy's hype train, but I want someone fucking else to do it, dude. I would much prefer someone else go do that. Because I don't, if I'm wrong, if I'm miscalculating, my ability to defend against what he's putting on, I do not want to be in the other side of any of those videos. I watch all his fights. I don't want to be a highlight on the other side of any of Khamzat's videos, which have been consistent every time he's fought. I don't want another man to render me that ineffective, man. Certainly not on video. I mean, I'm down. I get rendered that ineffective all the time when I'm training against people who are tremendously better than me. But I'm on video where I'm really trying to win and just to get ragdolled and beaten like that. I mean, so if they're not afraid of him, they're fucking stupid. Right? Kamaru's got to feel confident. Kamaru believes he's the best welterweight in the world. Completely justified. But anyway, that's enough. Love you guys.